They say the best way to escape the past is to hide away somewhere quiet, somewhere far from all the noise and chaos. For our protagonist, a lonely insomniac woman named Eva, that somewhere was this isolated house in the middle of nowhere. With its overgrown gardens and crooked porch swing, it looked like the perfect place to start fresh and hopefully get some sleep for once. But she didn't know that sometimes escaping the world can make you even more alone, and sometimes loneliness can drive you insane. Eva had been struggling with insomnia for years, ever since the death of her parents, the only family she had left. At first, it was just a few sleepless nights here and there, but then it became a full-blown phobia. She was terrified of going to sleep because then the nightmares would come. Vivid, terrifying dreams that made her entire body feel heavy and sore when she woke up. So she would lie awake staring at the ceiling, hoping that exhaustion would drag her under before the panic set in. It was exhausting. She tried talking to doctors, seeing therapists, taking medication. Nothing helped. The anxiety and depression started to take over. Her life became unmanageable. She missed days of work, ruined relationships. Finally, she quit her job and moved into her parents' vacation home, a small cottage in the middle of the countryside. The location was a complete change of pace for someone who had lived her whole life in the loud, busy city. But maybe that was exactly what she needed. For a while, it seemed like the quiet surroundings were helping her relax. There was something peaceful about waking up before sunrise and watching the mist creep across the fields. There were still the nightmares, though, and the insomnia. But the peace lasted a couple of weeks. Then the nightmares came back with a vengeance. Every night, she dreamt of being chased, running through endless dark hallways, trying to find the exit, but always ending up right back where she started. And every morning, she woke up screaming. Then the voices started. They were faint at first, just a whisper behind the walls, too quiet to make out any words. But then they got louder. Night after night, they kept calling her name, their voices echoing through the empty halls. She wasn't sure if she was going crazy or if the house was haunted, but she couldn't take the constant whispering anymore. So she called her landlord and told him she was leaving. As she packed her things, she noticed a loose floorboard in the bedroom. Underneath it, she found a small wooden box. Inside was an old leather-bound journal and a key that fit a lock in the attic. The journal was filled with the spidery handwriting, detailing the experiences of the last tenant, a woman who had lived in the house 30 years prior. She wrote about how the house had been giving her the same nightmares as Eva, the same ones she was having now, dreams of dark hallways and whispers in the night. She also wrote about the voices that echoed around the house, saying her name, always her name. The tenant had eventually gone mad and written, "It's driving me insane. I can't take it anymore." And then the entry stopped abruptly. The attic was filled with cobwebs and dust, lit only by a sliver of sunlight peeking through a hole in the roof. On the far wall was a locked wooden chest. In the corner sat an old rocking chair, and in the chair sat an old woman. Startled, Eva dropped the box and backed away. But the woman didn't move. Eva cautiously approached the figure and realized it was just a mannequin. Relief washed over her, but she couldn't help but notice that the doll's dress looked similar to the one the woman in the journal had described wearing in her final entry. Days turned into weeks. The voices in the house grew louder, more insistent. The nightmares plagued her every night, draining her energy. The journal became her only solace, its pages filled with stories that were eerily similar to her own. She read about how the tenant before had discovered a secret passage in the house, a tunnel that ran beneath the floorboards of her bedroom. Curious, Eva placed her hand on the floor, feeling for any give in the boards. She pressed against a loose floorboard, and it gave way. Beneath was a dark hole leading down into the earth. Trembling, she climbed into the tunnel. It was musty and cold, the air thick with the smell of decay. She crawled through the darkness until she reached a ladder. At the top was another room, identical to the attic, except this one had a window overlooking the backyard. Suddenly, the rocking chair in the corner began to rock slowly back and forth. Eva screamed and scrambled backwards, knocking over the lantern she had brought with her. In the sudden darkness, she panicked and crawled blindly through the tunnel. When she finally reached the surface, gasping for breath, she looked around to realize she wasn't in her backyard. She was standing in the middle of a dense forest. The trees towered above her, blocking out the sun. Lost and scared, she ran through the underbrush until she came across a dirt road. Following it, she eventually saw a familiar landmark and knew she was close to home. As she approached the house, she noticed the front door was unlocked and slightly ajar. Hesitantly, she stepped inside. The walls felt cold and damp against her skin. She could hear the whispers now, louder than ever, their voices echoing throughout the empty halls. As she walked through the house, she noticed strange symbols carved into the walls, identical to the markings that had appeared on her arms. She touched them, trying to make sense of it, and that's when she heard the voice. It was the same voice that had been haunting her, whispering her name, and it was coming from inside her head. The voice taunted her, goading her into the attic, promising answers. Up in the attic, she found a mirror on the far wall. As she stared into its dusty surface, she saw not her own reflection, but the reflection of the room itself. The window, the rocking chair, the very wall she was standing on. It was a portal into another dimension, another time, and she could see the old woman sitting in the chair. She beckoned to Eva, mouthing, "Come join me," and then she disappeared. The voice was getting louder now, drowning out all other thoughts. Eva could feel it pulling her towards the mirror, beckoning her to step through. She fought against it, though, desperately clinging to her sanity. But the voice was too strong. It promised her peace, an end to the pain and loneliness. And for a moment, she actually believed it. She reached out and touched the glass, and as she did, the mirror rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The voice crescendoed to a roar, and she fell forward. As the darkness enveloped her, she could feel the scratching of nails on wood, the scraping of metal on stone. She could hear the laughter, maniacal and cruel, echoing around her. And then, everything went silent. The house stood silent and still, its inhabitants long gone. The only sound was the wind whistling through the cracks in the walls. The journal lay open on the floor, its pages fluttering in the breeze. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, a single floorboard creaked in the attic. The rocking chair began to move, ever so slightly at first, then faster and faster, until it was flying backwards and forwards, propelled by an unseen force. In the corner, the old woman in the dusty dress smiled, her eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. She leaned forward, her voice a raspy whisper, "Come play with me." But there was no one there to hear her. The house was empty. Or was it? In the bedroom, beneath the loose floorboard, a shadow stirred. A faint scratching sound echoed in the darkness, as something clawed at the earth below. Something was trapped, something desperate to break free. The house had consumed yet another soul, adding its essence to the darkness that permeated its walls. It would stand silent until the next lonely soul stumbled through its door, seeking solace in its emptiness, only to be consumed by it. The house fed on loneliness, and it would never stop hunting. So the question remains, did Eva escape the house, or did it absorb her into its walls like the others? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying tales. Until next time, sleep tight.